So listen, John McEnroe got in some flack a few years ago for saying publicly that maybe the top 500 male player in the world could beat the number one female player in the world in a head-to-head match. He might have been exaggerating, but there's a completely different game. But this first came to major prominence, and McEnroe grew up in the system that bred this, was the battle of the sexes era. Now, this all comes down to one person, Bobby Riggs. Now, Bobby Riggs, for many years, was considered not only one of the most important tennis players in the history of American tennis, he was probably one of the biggest hustlers on the what he called the independent circuit back in the day. Known as a hustler and gambler for numerous years, in his 1945 autobiography, he wrote that he had made 105,000 US, which is 2.3 million today, in 39 by betting in England on himself to win all three Wimbledon championships, the singles, doubles, and mixed doubles. At the time, most betting was illegal in England. From an initial $500 bet on his chances of winning the singles competition, he eventually won the equivalent of 1.5 million in 2010 dollars. According to Riggs, World War II kept him from taking his winnings out of the country, so that by 46, after the war had ended, he had then had an even larger sum waiting for him in England as it increased by interest. Now here it gets kind of freaky. By the early 1970s, the women's game was getting more prominence because of Margaret Smith Court and Billie Jean King. It was starting to rise. Now Riggs was technically 30 years past his prime in 1973. He was previously ranked year-end number one three times and had won six major titles during his career, including those three Wimbledon titles. After he retired from pro tennis in 51, he remained a master promoter himself and of tennis. In 73, he opined that the female game was inferior, then even at his current age of 55, he could still beat any of the top female players. Now, he first challenged Billie Jean King, but when she declined, Margaret Smith Court stepped in, accepting the guarantee of $20,000 for the match, more than she had earned for winning both the 1973 Australian and French Open women's titles. There were shitty money for female players at the time. Now, Court was at the playing in the match 30 and had recently returned to tennis after giving birth to her first child in March of 72. She was in the midst of earning her seventh year-end ranking as number one female player in the world. On the day of their match on May 13th, 73, 5,000 fans came to the Mother's Day event in Ramona, California. Televised by CBS, Riggs descended the stadium steps and presented Court with Mother's Day flowers, which he accepted while curtsying. Riggs kept to his game and used his drop shots and lobs to keep Court off balance. Now his quick victory, and it was a devastation 6-2, 6-1, landed Riggs on the cover of both Sports Illustrated and Time. Now, I watched portions of the match. Margaret Smith Court was, the mind games got to her because she had a basic game, and her game could not compete with any male game. But you got to understand, Riggs was in his mid-50s at the time, so even to win one game or one set was tremendous. Now, the sugar daddy, as I call him, because his major sponsor was Sugar Daddy, was suddenly in the national limelight following his win over Court. Riggs then taunted all female tennis players, prompting King to eventually accept a lucrative financial offer to play Riggs in a national televised match in prime time on ABC that promoters dubbed the Battle of the Sexes. The match, which had a winner-take-all prize of $100,000, was held in Texas at the Astrodome on September 20th, 73. At that time, King, who was 29, had earned her fifth year-end ranking as number one world female player the previous year, and would finish second to Court in 73. Now, King entered the court in his style of Cleopatra on a feather-adorned litter carried by four bare-chested muscle men dressed in the style of ancient slave, which was kind of ironic because she was a closeted lesbian. Now, Riggs followed in a rickshaw drawn by a bevy of models. Riggs presented King with a giant sugar daddy lollipop, and she responded by giving a squealing piglet, symbolic of male chauvinist pigism. Riggs was given $50,000, which is $343,000 today, to wear a yellow sugar daddy jacket during the match, but when he took it off after 3 games, Riggs also placed many bets on and invested money in the match. Now, King, who was also competed in Virginia Slims of Houston tournament the same week, won 6-4, 6-3, 6-3. In the first set, she fell behind 3-2 when Riggs broke her serve. In a 2015 interview, She said that most people do not remember that she was literally behind in the first set, and it looked bad for her in the early going. At this point, King realized that she had to win, given the importance of the match, and broke right back in again in the 10th game to close out the set. She had learned from Court's loss and was ready for Riggs' game. Rather than playing her own usual aggressive game, King mostly stayed at the baseline, at least at first, easily handling Riggs' lobs and soft shots, making him cover the entire court as she ran him from side to side and bet him at his own defensive style of play. After quickly failing from the baseline, where he had intended to play, Riggs dropped his comedic effect and showed a more serious demeanor as he was forced to change to a serve and volley game, but it was no match for King. Now, some male critics were less impressed by King's victory, pointing to the fact that she was 26 years younger. Jack Kramer, who hated her guts, was against equal pay for women and offered a tournament in which the female winner got $1,500 while the male winner got $12,000, was one example. According to him, I don't think Billie Jean played all that well. She had a lot of short balls, which Bobby could have taken advantage of had he been in shape. I would never take anything away from Billie Jean because she was smart enough to prepare herself properly, but it might have been difficult if Riggs hadn't kept running around. It was more than one woman who took care of Bobby Riggs in Houston. But before the match, King had forced the American television network ABC to drop Kramer as a commentator. King said he doesn't believe in women's tennis. Why should he be part of this match? He doesn't believe in half of the match. I'm not playing. Either he goes or I go. And this is kind of talked about in the Emma Stone, Steve Carell Battle of the Sexes movie, which is quite good. Probably one of the best TV movies of the last 20 years. Check it out on Netflix. Or, Disney. Now, more neutral observers were impressed by King's brilliant play and smart tactics. She both first served aggressively and attacked Riggs' own softball deliveries with authority. She rushed to the net and commanded the territory by whipping stunning volleys off her backhand, by taking Riggs' and famous moonshot lobs out of the dome lights and rifling overheads right past him. She varied pace on ground strokes, kept Riggs moving from corner to corner, and played consistently to his weak backhand. She concentrated on hitting behind her opponent, wrong-footing him time and time again. Now, feminist media critic Susan Douglas later wrote, "Women like me screamed with delight in our living rooms. When she won, she not only vindicated female athletes and feminism, but also inspired many of us to get in shape. Not because it would make us beautiful, but because it would make us strong and healthy, and in many cases, she didn't say, but make money." Now, the match had an audience of an estimated 50 million people in the States and 90 million worldwide. The attendance in the Astrodome was 30,472, and it still remains the largest audience to see a tennis match in the States. Now, there was some speculation that Riggs had deliberately lost the match. In 2013, NPR aired an interview with Don Van Natta Sr., a senior writer with ESPN. According to Natta, Hal Shaw was in a pro shop at the Balma Cia Golf Club in Tampa when two known mobsters entered and proceeded to discuss a proposal from Riggs to winning its Margaret Court, but deliberately lose to King in settlement of a $100,000 gambling debt. The mobsters ultimately decided to accept that proposal. Shaw did not come forward about the matter at the time for fear of retribution by the mob. Per Riggs' son, Riggs did know quite a few mob leaders, and men related to the mob met with Riggs several times in the weeks leading up to the match with King. However, when these allegations were put to King, she was adamant that she knew what tanking a match looked like and felt like, and Riggs did not tank the match. Others speculated that Riggs deliberately lost based on his poor play and a large number of unforced errors in order to win large sums of money they had bet against himself in a way to pay off his gambling debts. But Riggs had a potential $1 million match against Chrissy Everett in New York, so if it works, he won. Plus, it was a winner-take-all match for a $100,000 prize. A headline at the time was "Women Ecstatic, Men Make Excuses." Riggs said afterwards that he underestimated Billie Jean King, who had outright winners on 68% of her shots. Now, the Martina Navratilova in 2023 stated the reason the 55-year-old Riggs lost to King was simply because of age. Navratilova said Riggs lost because Bobby was too old, and he said a 35-year-old Bobby would have beaten Elvis. I tend to agree. Riggs was just a tremendous, maybe the first modern player of that form of tennis. Now, a few months after a match, King and Riggs were guest stars in The Pig Who Came to Dinner episode of The Odd Couple, which originally aired on November 16, 1973. Now, in 2001, ABC aired a TV film about the match between King and Riggs, titled "When Billy Bet Bobby," starring the great Holly Hunter and Ron Silver as King and Riggs, respectively. In 2013, New Black Films released a documentary movie, Battle of the Sexes in cinemas, with TV broadcasts following soon after. It was directed by James Erskine and Zara Hayes. The film was released on DVD in 2014. Now, the 2017 film Battle of the Sexes, directed by Jonathan Dayton and Valerie Ferris, is about the King-Riggs match. Emma Stone played King and Steve Carell played Riggs. A very, very strong performance. So, ladies and gentlemen, I watched that match and I still couldn't believe an old man like that could even win 4 games in a set against Billie Jean King. Billie Jean has always been a hero of mine because a very quality player, good athlete. The idea about sports, ladies and gentlemen, everything's a hustle. And that true doubt in popular culture about the results of certain things. A lot of people felt after there certain teams would win every year, like the Yankees or the Montreal Canadiens or the Steelers, that the fix was in. So if you're looking at the start of the conspiracy culture of the States, some of the start is here. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my take on the great Battle of the Sexes match between Billie Jean and Bobby. If you like what you're doing here with our sports podcast, let us know and like, comment, subscribe, or share. Bye.